Her phone showed a photo of her sleeping, taken from above. Mara woke with the dry, brittle awareness that something had tugged her out of sleep. Not a sound exactly, just the absence of one. The small apartment held its breath. The radiator had stopped its ticking. The refrigerator's distant hum was gone. Even the traffic outside, usually a thin, constant ribbon of noise, had fallen away. She lay still beneath the quilt, its cotton worn smooth from years of washing. One foot caught in the hem. The air felt close, heavy. The ceiling above her bed was a blank square of shadow. Her phone glowed faintly on the nightstand. She hadn't meant to check it. The light was what drew her. An insistent, pale rectangle in the dark. She rolled toward it, the sheets rasping softly against her legs, and lifted it from the wood. The screen's glow lit her face in a cold wash, sharpening the angles of her cheekbones in the black glass reflection. No notifications, but the Photos app was open. She frowned. She never left it open. A single thumbnail pulsed at the top of the gallery, as if newly added. The timestamp read 3:12 a.m. It was 3:14. Her thumb hovered before she tapped. The image filled the screen. Her body went very still. It was her bed, her quilt. Her hair spilled across the pillow in a dark, tangled crescent. Her mouth slightly open in sleep. The faint crease between her brows that never fully smoothed. It was her, taken from directly above. The angle was steep, almost vertical. The entire bed framed neatly within the shot. The nightstand visible to the left. The door to the bedroom closed. The image was sharply focused, composed with an eerie precision. Not rushed, not accidental. She pulled the phone closer to her face, as if proximity might clarify something. There was no ladder in her apartment. No loft. The ceiling was flat and unbroken. 8 feet high, smooth plaster. She knew because she'd repainted it last year, balancing on a borrowed step stool that barely reached. The photograph had been taken from at least 10 feet up, maybe higher. A laugh tried to climb out of her throat and died there. Glitch, she thought. Some kind of cloud sync error. Corrupted file. She'd once read about phones stitching together fragments of images. Ghost data from deleted backups. Yes, that was possible. She tapped the information icon. Taken, 3:12 a.m. device. This iPhone. Flash, off. Exposure time, focal length, ISO, all normal. All real. Location data, home. Her stomach tightened. She zoomed in on the corner of the image where the ceiling met the wall. The paint was the same soft gray she'd chosen. The faint water stain in the upper right corner was there too, shaped vaguely like a bird in flight. It was her room. She lowered the phone slowly and looked up. The ceiling loomed, blank and matte in the dark. Her heartbeat had begun to press against her ribs. "Okay," she whispered, the word fragile in the stillness. "Okay." Maybe someone had come in. Her mind recoiled from the thought and then circled back to it, compulsively. She lived alone. 3rd floor walk-up. Windows locked. Door deadbolt. But locks were suggestions to people who knew how to ignore them. She slid out of bed. The hardwood floor was cool beneath her feet. The boards creaked faintly as she moved toward the bedroom door, each sound amplified by the hour. She checked the deadbolt first. Still engaged. The chain hung slack. The living room beyond was a dim arrangement of shapes. The couch, the coffee table, the narrow bookshelf against the far wall. Nothing looked disturbed. She walked through the small apartment, turning on lights one by one. Kitchen, empty. Bathroom, empty. Closet, only coats and the faint scent of detergent. Her pulse refused to slow. When she returned to the bedroom, she noticed something she hadn't before. The nightstand. It was slightly angled. She was meticulous about its placement. It sat flush against the wall because the outlet was finicky and the charger cord had to bend just right. Now there was a narrow wedge of shadow between the wood and the paint. An inch, maybe less. Her mouth went dry. She crouched and pushed it back into place. The legs scraped faintly across the floor, and the sound made her flinch. "It shifted when I bumped it," she murmured. "That's all." but she hadn't bumped it. She picked up her phone again and studied the photo more carefully. There, near the edge of the frame, a shadow she didn't recognize. It cut across the upper left corner at a diagonal, too sharp to be the soft pooling darkness of her bedside lamp. It looked like a line, as if something had partially obscured the lens. She glanced at her ceiling again. There was nothing there. No light fixture, no fan, just a smoke detector in the center of the room. Her breath hitched. The smoke detector. She stepped onto the bed, knees sinking into the mattress, and reached up to examine it. It was an ordinary white disc, slightly yellowed with age. No visible camera lens. No blinking light. Still, she stood on her toes, stretching her fingers along the seam where plastic met ceiling. Solid. She climbed down slowly. The photo remained. She opened the editing tool and increased the brightness. The room in the image lightened, and in the reflection of her dark television screen, barely visible from the angle, she saw something that wasn't in the room now. A shape, tall, narrow, standing beside the bed. Her breath stopped entirely. She spun around. Nothing. The television was blank and reflective. The space beside her bed was empty. Her eyes darted back to the phone. The shape remained. It wasn't detailed. No face, no features, just a vertical absence, darker than the surrounding shadows, positioned exactly where someone might stand to look down at her. "This is ridiculous," she said, but the words sounded thin. She switched to video mode and held the phone above her head, arm extended as high as she could manage. The angle wasn't even close. She climbed onto the nightstand, wobbling slightly, and reached up again. Still wrong. Too low. The perspective skewed. Not the clean, top-down symmetry of the image. She fetched the step stool from the kitchen, a small two-step thing she used to reach the upper cabinets. Standing on its highest rung atop the mattress, she raised the phone as far as her shaking arm allowed. Now she was nearly brushing the ceiling. She snapped a photo. The result was closer but still imperfect. The edges distorted, the framing off-center, and even at full extension, her phone had been maybe 8.5 feet above the floor. The original image had been taken from higher, from a place that did not exist. Her gaze drifted slowly around the room. The walls felt subtly wrong now, closer, as if the geometry had shifted by degrees too small to consciously measure. She compared the two images side by side. In the earlier one, the dresser was a fraction of an inch nearer to the bed. The rug slightly rotated. She looked down. The rug beneath her feet was straight. Her pulse pounded in her ears. The photo wasn't just documentation. It was a version, a draft. As she stared, something changed. She didn't see it happen. She only felt it, the subtle sensation of being aligned. She looked back at the room. The dresser. It was closer. Not much, but enough that the gap between it and the wall had narrowed. Her throat closed. Slowly, mechanically, she turned in a full circle. The apartment seemed to be adjusting. Micro-movements. A chair leg nudging inward. The bedroom door shifting a degree on its hinges. As if the room were correcting itself to match the photograph. "No," she whispered. The air felt denser, harder to draw into her lungs. Her phone vibrated faintly in her hand. A new photo appeared in the gallery. 3:19 a.m. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Again, her sleeping form, but this time her eyes were open. In the image, she lay on her back staring directly upward at the camera, at whatever was above her. And the angle, higher, impossible. The ceiling visible in full, but stretched, elongated. The corners bending away into a darkness that wasn't shadow but depth, as if the room extended upward far beyond its physical limits, as if the ceiling were only the surface of something vast. A realization unfurled inside her, cold and complete. No one had stood beside her bed. No one had climbed above her. The perspective wasn't external. It was intrinsic. The room hadn't been observed. It had observed. The angle didn't exist because it wasn't bound by her understanding of space. The camera wasn't in the room. It was the room. Her walls, her ceiling, the empty air between them, arranging themselves, framing her, focusing, learning her shape in the dark. The radiator ticked suddenly, a sharp metallic pop that made her cry out. The refrigerator hummed back to life. Traffic resumed its distant whisper. Ordinary sounds, sliding back into place. Her phone screen dimmed, then went black. For a long moment she stood there, the step stool sinking into the mattress, the quilt twisted around her ankles. Finally, she climbed down. She set the phone carefully on the nightstand, flush against the wall. She lay back in bed. The cotton sheet felt rougher now, the pillow too warm. She did not close her eyes. Above her, the ceiling waited, blank, patient. And somewhere within the quiet architecture of the room, something adjusted its angle, preparing for a better shot. The air smelled like someone else's perfume. I noticed it the moment I stepped out of the bathroom and into the darkened hallway, toothbrush still in my mouth, mint sharp against my tongue. It wasn't strong. Not at first. Just a thin ribbon of something floral threading through the stillness of my apartment. Powdery, sweet, with a faint musk underneath. Not mine. I stood there, barefoot on the cool tile, and inhaled again. The scent seemed to hover at head height, as if it occupied a specific layer of air. It wasn't coming from the bathroom. The steam had already thinned. The mirror was clear. I hadn't worn perfume in months. Working from home had dissolved that ritual into something unnecessary. I spat, rinsed, and turned off the light. The hallway swallowed me in shadow. The only illumination came from the city outside, a diluted amber glow filtering through the living room curtains. I moved toward it slowly. The smell followed. It wasn't overwhelming. It lingered with intention. Every breath drew it deeper into my lungs, and the more I noticed it, the more distinct it became. Rose, maybe, or violet, something old-fashioned. The kind of perfume that comes in a glass bottle with a bulb atomizer, the kind that leaves a faint dusting on scarves. I paused near the couch. The scent strengthened. "Okay," I muttered, and the sound of my voice felt intrusive in the quiet. Apartments carry things. Cooking smells, cigarette smoke, the ghost of someone's detergent slipping through vents. Maybe the woman downstairs had gone out tonight. Maybe she'd bathed in it. I went to the front door and checked the deadbolt. Locked. The chain hung slack but secured. I pressed my hand flat against the wood as if I might feel a draft. Nothing. When I turned back toward the living room, I noticed something small and wrong. The coffee table. It sat at a slight angle. Not much. Just enough that its corner no longer aligned with the seam in the rug beneath it. I was particular about that seam. I'd centered the table carefully when I moved in. I crouched and nudged it back into place. The legs scraped faintly across the hardwood. The scent deepened. I froze, felt closer now, as if whatever carried it had leaned in. My heart ticked upward in my chest. "It's in your head," I whispered. "You noticed it, so now it's stronger." Scent is memory's accomplice. I knew that. The brain stores fragrance like a key to a locked room. Maybe it reminded me of someone. Maybe my mind was filling in details. I walked into the kitchen. The air there was thinner, tinged with dish soap and the faint metallic coolness of the sink. I opened the refrigerator. Cold air spilled out clean and sterile. No perfume. I shut it. As I turned, the smell brushed past me again, this time unmistakably from the direction of the bedroom. My pulse stumbled. The bedroom door was open. It always was. I didn't like closed doors at night. They felt like secrets. The room beyond was a dim arrangement of soft shapes. Bed, dresser, the tall mirror leaning against the wall opposite the window. The scent pooled at the threshold. I stepped inside. It was thicker here, almost tangible. The air felt textured, like velvet drawn slowly across skin. Each inhale coated the back of my throat with sweetness. I moved to the dresser and opened the top drawer. Socks, t-shirts, the familiar, neutral smell of fabric softener. I leaned closer. Nothing. I checked the closet. only coats and the faint, dry scent of cedar blocks. But when I straightened, the perfume pressed in again, strongest near the mirror. I stared at my reflection. My face looked pale in the low light, eyes too wide. The mirror itself was clean. I'd wiped it down earlier in the evening. As I watched, a thin film of fog began to bloom across the glass. I stepped back. There was no heat in the room, no steam. The window was cracked open an inch, letting in cool autumn air. Still, the fog spread, softening my reflection until my features blurred. The scent sharpened, less floral now, more musky, intimate. My stomach tightened. I wiped the mirror with my palm. The condensation smeared, then cleared. My reflection snapped back into focus. But for a moment, just a flicker, I thought I saw the outline of someone standing behind me. I turned so fast I felt the air shift. The room was empty, the bed neatly made, the curtains unmoving. My skin prickled. "Neighbor," I said out loud. "Ventilation." I walked to the vent near the floor and knelt, pressed my nose close. Dust, old air, nothing sweet. When I rose, the scent had moved again. It hovered above the bed now. I approached slowly. The duvet was smooth, pulled tight earlier that morning. I ran my hand across it. The cotton was cool and slightly rough beneath my palm. As my fingers traced the fabric, they met resistance. A shallow indentation, on the opposite side of the bed, as if someone had sat there. My breath thinned. The indentation was subtle, easy to miss, but I hadn't been in the room since making it. I was certain. I pressed down beside it experimentally. The mattress dipped, then rose. The other impression remained. The scent intensified until it felt like it coated my tongue. And then, recognition. It struck with such sudden clarity that my knees nearly gave out. I knew this perfume. Not from a neighbor, not from a store. From her. My grandmother. The one who had died when I was 12. She'd worn the same fragrance every day. A powdery rose with a dark, musky base. It clung to her cardigans, to the upholstery in her living room, to the envelopes of birthday cards she mailed. I hadn't thought about that smell in years. Had I? Memory bloomed unbidden. Sitting beside her on a floral couch, her cool hand smoothing my hair, the air thick with that scent. But there was something wrong. My grandmother had lived across the country. I hadn't seen her apartment since childhood. I owned nothing of hers. Not a scarf. Not a bottle. There was no reason, no physical reason, for this smell to exist here. And yet it did. "Grief does strange things," I whispered. "Memory is powerful." But my grandmother had been gone for over a decade. Why now? The scent shifted again. Not dispersing. Circling. It moved from the bed toward the doorway, then lingered in the hallway like a person pausing, waiting. I followed. The air grew denser with each step. In the living room, the shadows seemed slightly misaligned. The lamp near the couch cast a soft yellow cone, but the shadow of the armchair stretched in the wrong direction, angled too sharply, as if another light source existed outside my view. I turned off the lamp. Darkness swallowed the room, leaving only the city glow. The shadow remained, faint, persistent. My chest tightened. The perfume thickened until it was almost suffocating. Not nostalgic now. Intentional. It filled the space in front of me, head height again, exactly where someone might stand. I felt it then, not a touch, not quite, but a pressure in the air, as if a body occupied the same square footage. "I remember you," I said softly, though I wasn't sure who I meant. The scent reacted. It bloomed, full, undeniable. Not drifting from vents. Not clinging to fabric. Radiating. Active. The realization slid into place with dreadful precision. This wasn't residue. It wasn't memory leaking into the present. It was presence. The perfume wasn't echoing from the past. It was being worn. Here, now. The air shifted, and the scent moved closer, enveloping me. Curled into my hair, sank into the collar of my shirt, claimed space on my skin. My eyes stung. In the dark window across the room, my reflection stared back, small and solitary. Behind me, the air thickened. The faintest indentation appeared in the couch cushion to my left, and the perfume deepened, warm and patient, as if whoever carried it had stepped fully into the room at last, close enough to be noticed.